to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this, as you can see from the thumbnail, is episode 48. Birchmore and Reed, both victims of massive MSP and DA cover up. And this is an episode that I'm excited to bring to you today because I want to kind of compare and look at both the Sandra Birchmore case, who you can see on the far left in the red glasses. And then obviously you probably already know who Karen Reed is at this point, and she is on the opposite end there. And the common denominator is Michael Morrissey right in between. And you've got the Massachusetts State Police right behind him with Michael Proctor and I believe that's Lieutenant Fanning. Yeah, so this is we're going to talk about sorry, here, let me get myself back on the screen. We're going to talk about some irregularities, some consistencies that we're seeing, some patterns from the Massachusetts State Police and the Norfolk District Attorney, who is allegedly very corrupt and doesn't really care a whole lot about much other than his own personal benefits rather than, and I say this because alleged, but I say this because of the fact that he went through with charging an innocent woman, a knowingly innocent woman. Like they had to know she was innocent and that she was being framed. So there's just no other way around it. So that's why I think he is corrupt and he needs to get out of office. So, for that reason, we're going to talk about how the Sandra Birchmore case, which you may have heard of, if not, don't worry, I'm going to give you a full rundown of that case and how the Sandra Birchmore case kind of relates in some ways to the Karen Reed case. It's a different concept, different story, but similar characters involved. Michael Morrissey, especially, is the district attorney in both cases. And we're going to take a look at some legal documents and some videos. So I've got a lot planned for you, so please hit that like button and let's get into it. I am excited to bring this to you today. So first up, what I wanted to do was read through some of the defendant's motion. Let me shrink myself here. We're going to read through some of the defendant's motion for sanctions and for disqualification of the Norfolk County District Attorney and memorandum in support thereof. So this is obviously from the defendant, Karen Reed, and this was all done pre-trial and it was dismissed or denied by Bev Canoni, go figure. But we had hope and we wanted her to agree to some sanctions for District Attorney Michael Morrissey, but she did not. Even though in her denial, in her order, she said that the defense made a lot of good points. So, anyways, so we're going to read through a little bit of this so that we've read through the whole document previously on my channel, so I'm not going to read through all of it, but I'm going to read through just a little bit of the factual background and then kind of point out what their arguments were. I'm not going to read through all the arguments. Um, some of it might already be evident because it came out in trial. So let's see what Karen Reed's attorneys have to say. So now comes the defendant, Karen Reed, and respectfully urges this honorable court to sanction the prosecution for constitutional due process violations. So sanction Adam Lawley for violating Miss Reed's constitutional rights and for violations of ethical requirements imposed by the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct and for egregious misrepresentations to the tribunal and to opposing counsel. At this point, I think they could add some things to this um, to this motion and make it even stronger after Adam Lawley tried to submit mirrored, reversed, whatever you want to call it, incorrect footage, inaccurate surveillance footage of the Sally Port, and Sergeant Buchanan agreed, yep, that's how it looked. And nobody said that it was backwards or reversed. And they're trying to pull that off or pull the wool over all of our eyes because they think that we're so stupid. Anyways, all right, so let's sanction Adam Lawley and the district attorney's office for even bringing these forth, for misrepresenting things, for violating her rights. Additionally, the defendant moves to disqualify the Norfolk County District Attorney because of his clear interest, other than pursuit of justice, in the outcome of this prosecution. In further support of this motion, the defendant relies on the arguments below. Here are the facts. This is the background. The defendant is charged with homicide in the second degree in violation of GL 2651 manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol in violation of the same thing, 13 and a half, and leaving the scene of personal injury and loss of life in violation of GLC 90 and all those other numbers. All charges allegedly related to the life lost of Boston police officer John O'Keefe in Canton, Massachusetts on January 29th, 2022. John O'Keefe's body was found outside 34 Fairview Road, Canton, the residence of a different Boston police officer, and the location of an after-hours party the night of January 28th through the 29th. Defendant's counsel have asserted in court filings and in court arguments based on evidence both developed by the defendant and disclosed by the Commonwealth in discovery, including the analyses of John O'Keefe's phone and the phone of a civilian witness also present inside 34 Fairview Road, that's John McCabe, that John O'Keefe had entered the 34 Fairview Road residence, that he was attacked inside the residence by a person or persons also present there, that persons also present in the residence were aware that John O'Keefe had sustained injuries inside the home and participated in a cover-up of what happened, that other law enforcement officers, including the Massachusetts State Police trooper, had participated in and furthered the cover-up of what happened to John O'Keefe inside 34 Fairview Road, including by planting incriminating evidence falsely implicating the defendant in the loss of John O'Keefe's life. So we knew that this was their theory already, but they just word everything so great in their filings that, it invokes passion within me when I read some of their stuff. I think it's good. Uh, Alan or whoever, Yannetti, whoever writes these is a good writer. Good speechwriter. They're both good speechwriters and good presenters, so I'm not surprised. All right, so as this court has explicitly noted, perhaps with understatement, this case has generated significant media attention locally and nationally. Memorandum of Decision and Order of Commonwealth's motion to prohibit prejudicial extrajudicial statements of counsel in compliance with Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6a, Order on the Commonwealth's motion. Case generated significant media attention locally and nationally, and it just keeps getting bigger. This was way back before, I can't remember when this was filed. Was it not on here? I don't know. It was like in the months leading up to the trial. So, but I think it was like submitted sometime 2024 leading up to the trial. All right, so the Commonwealth seeks and is denied a gag order. On June 9th, 2023, the Commonwealth filed its motion to prohibit prejudicial extrajudicial, so any statements that might be prejudicial to the client or to the defendant, and an extrajudicial statement just means out of court. So people, including like the defense counsel and prosecution, if there's gag order in place, usually neither of them can talk about whatever that gag order protects. I totally lost my train of thought. All right, so on June 9th, the Commonwealth filed its motion to prohibit prejudicial extrajudicial statements of counsel in compliance with Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6a. Commonwealth's motion seeking to prohibit defendants' counsel from making extrajudicial statements to the media that could be seen as prejudicial to the criminal proceedings, while simultaneously stating that the Commonwealth and its law enforcement witnesses agree to be bound by the same order guided by Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6a, as well as Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct Rule 3.8, Special Responsibility of a Prosecutor. So, not only do prosecutors have to abide by all the laws of a lawyer, they have to also abide by the professional conduct for prosecutors. There's special requirements for that. If you're going to be a prosecutor, that's a huge, huge responsibility and a huge amount of power. You have the power to decide whose freedoms are taken away and whose aren't, whose charges get dropped and whose don't, whose charges get moved forward and whose get pled out. Whatever the case may be, you are that deciding factor. So Michael Morrissey is the problem in both this case and the Sandra Birchmore case. So don't tune out. We're going to get to Sandra Birchmore. I just want to read through a little bit of this in case you're not familiar with all of the different things. I mean, you've seen the trial at this point, but in case you're not familiar with the things leading up to the trial and you missed this, you weren't in the Karen Reed movement yet, you hadn't heard or caught on to it. Um, I just want to reiterate some of the things that are in here because it's important to look at the misconduct that was taking place. All right, so while simultaneously stating that the Commonwealth and its law enforcement witnesses agree to be bound by the same order, as well as all those rules. Okay, so the Commonwealth's motion contended that statements it attributed to defendants' counsel about the defense theory about the cover up by both civilians and law enforcement go further than zealous representation. They are unsubstantiated proclamations supported only by self serving speculation and conjecture, likely not to be admissible at trial and done with the intent of materially prejudicing the criminal proceedings by risking the impartiality of potential jurors. So that was in a motion that those are the things that the Commonwealth stated about the defense's theories. And so the defense has every right to defend itself, or, to come up with a strategy and a defense. And even if the prosecutor is not going to like it and you go and say the prosecutor's involved somehow, they still have that right. The prosecutor is not supposed to go out and publicly or in public court documents say that they're filing um, their ideas are just overzealous representation. It's unsubstantiated and not supported, blah, blah, blah. So a prosecutor can't go around and diss a defense for a defendant. They can't like poo-poo it. They're not supposed to go around and say anything about it, really. So they're supposed to be unbiased. They're supposed to be impartial. They're not supposed to have any skin in the game. So that's why this is important that Karen Reed's team was trying to get Michael Morrissey off. Right, so the Commonwealth specifically contended that under the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct, counsel is prohibited from making repeated extrajudicial statements that they know or reasonably should know have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing potential jurors, trial jurors, or witnesses. The court rejected the Commonwealth's contention, specifically finding that the statements and arguments attributed to the defendant's counsel can generally be characterized as responses to the accusations against the defendant and as pertaining to the theory of her defense. Exactly. And at that the statements are therefore permitted under the rules order on Commonwealth's motion at 3. The court further cautioned all counsel that they are bound by the rules of professional conduct. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Um, here we go. So the district attorney creates a video disseminated widely to the media. So 25 days after the court's order denying the Commonwealth's gag order, the district attorney for Norfolk County, that's Michael Morrissey, he's the one, well, we'll see him on video in just a second. Okay, so Michael Morrissey disseminated to the media a video that he pre-recorded. It's a pre-recorded video. It's 5 minutes and 45 seconds in length, I guess, and simultaneously also releasing a full transcript of it to the media. We're going to watch it in just a second. So in the media, District Attorney Morrissey, seated in front of a bookcase of volumes of Massachusetts statutes and court opinions, directly addresses the camera, reading a statement that he acknowledges at the start is already unprecedented. The full transcript is below. We're not going to read it. We are going to watch it. There you go.
The first statement of its kind in my dozen years as Norfolk District Attorney. The harassment of witnesses in the murder prosecution of Karen Reed is absolutely baseless. It should be an outrage to any decent person, and it needs to stop. Innuendo is not evidence. False narratives are not evidence. However, what evidence does show is that John O'Keefe never entered the home at 34 Fairview Road in Canton the night he died.
What about the steps he took? Those did not get caused by driving in a hilly area, which Turtleboy Aiden Carney proved was not even a hill. So he's like, it's the flattest road I've ever seen. And he does a video of it. There's no hill, where Trooper Garino, remember that name, Trooper Garino, who did the data extraction in the Karen Reed case, said that John O'Keefe was a quarter of a mile away and he was driving through a hilly area, which is why his Apple Watch recorded steps. Like, not just steps, but floors. He went up or down 3 flights of stairs, according to his Apple Watch. But Trooper Garino says, no, he just drove over a hill, but Turtleboy debunked that. Anyways, keep going.
Location data from his phone, recovered from the lawn beneath his body when he was transported to the hospital, shows that this phone did not enter that home. 11 people have given statements that they did not see John O'Keefe enter the home at 34 Fairview that night. 0 people have said that they saw him enter the home. 0. No one.
Actually, let's take that back a sec. So 11 very unreliable lying liarsons on the stand said that he didn't go in the house. Okay, I believe you. But let's also look back at Higgins' testimony, and he said in his federal grand jury testimony, he said that a tall man with dark hair walked into the house, but he didn't know who it was. So he slipped and admitted John was in the house.
Some have, without any evidence, pointed to 18-year-old Colin Albert, a nephew of the homeowner, and accused him of attacking John O'Keefe as he entered the home. But phone evidence shows O'Keefe never entered the home at all. Testimony from witnesses tell us that 18-year-old Colin Albert had left his uncle's home before John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had arrived outside the residence. There was no...
Actually, we know now from Trooper Garino that Karen's cell phone connected to the Wi-Fi at John's home on One Meadows Ave, and she was home at 12:36. The Commonwealth, originally in Adam Lawley's opening statement, he said that Karen ran him over at 12:45. We know that's not true. That was actually testified to by Jen McCabe, who was probably the most unreliable witness, if not Trooper Proctor. But she was very unbelievable, and she's the one that said it. So how are we supposed to believe her?
Fight inside that home. John O'Keefe did not enter the home. Colin Albert, the young man being vilified, was not present when Reed's vehicle and John O'Keefe arrived on the street. This is a false narrative. Colin Albert didn't commit murder. Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and Brian Albert. These people were not part of a conspiracy and certainly did not commit murder or any crime that night. They have been forthcoming with authority, providing statements, and have not engaged in any cover-up. They are not suspects in any crime. They are merely witnesses in the case.
They should be suspects, but because you're corrupt and the Massachusetts State Police that you run, they actually have offices in the Norfolk District Attorney's building. That's where their offices are because they report to the DA Morrissey, or they're under him. So somehow he's their boss. Does that make sense? Aren't they supposed to be separated? Law and state, isn't it supposed to be separated? Why would this be Massachusetts? Why are you doing it this way? Anyways, doesn't make sense.
To have them accused of murder is outrageous. To have them harassed and intimidated based on false narratives and accusations is wrong. They are witnesses doing what our justice system asks of them. The autopsy of John O'Keefe was conducted by a forensic pathologist from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. The doctor found that the injuries that left John helpless in the cold were not a result of a fight. She further found that the line of abrasions on his arm was consistent with blunt trauma, not an animal attack.
She never said that. She may have said blunt trauma, but she never said it was not an animal. She couldn't definitively say that. She even agreed that his injuries on the stand were not. She said on the stand that his injuries are not the normal injuries that they would see in a motor vehicle accident.
A grand jury of everyday citizens heard the documented evidence and testimony before making a decision. The subject of that murder indictment enjoys the constitutional presumption of innocence. Why should the witnesses who have committed no crime be afforded less by members of the community? They should not be harassed for telling the government what they heard or saw. I'm asking the Canton community and everyone who feels invested in this case to hear all the actual evidence at trial before assigning guilt to people who have done nothing wrong. And certainly before taking it upon yourself to harass citizens who evidence shows have done nothing in this matter but come forward and bear witness.
So not only do they put out this unprecedented statement that you people in the public need to stop harassing these witnesses. They're poor, helpless victims, not what you think they are. And it turns out they actually are what we thought they were.
We try people in the court and not on the internet for a reason. The internet has no rules of evidence. The internet has no punishment for perjury. And the internet does not know all the facts. Conspiracy theories are not evidence. The idea that multiple police department, EMTs, fire personnel, the medical examiner, and prosecuting agencies are joined in or taken in by a vast conspiracy should be seen for what it is, completely contrary to the evidence and a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Michael Proctor, the state police trooper, being accused of planting evidence outside 34 Fairview Road, was never at Fairview Road on the day of the incident.
We know that's a lie now. Or at least someone wrote in a report something incorrect then if Trooper Proctor wasn't on the scene that day, because somebody did write it. I can't remember who it was now on the stand, but it was later on in the trial. Some law enforcement officer did testify to it. I can't remember who it was.
Proctor and his state police partner traveled together the entire day while other officers were processing 34 Fairview. Trooper Proctor was not there and did not plant evidence at 34 Fairview Road. In addition to having no opportunity to plant the evidence, as has been suggested, Proctor would have no motive to do so. Trooper Proctor had no close personal relationship with any of the parties involved in the investigation and had no conflict.
That is a bold-faced lie, sir. You should just resign from your position after this statement. You should not be a DA any longer. This is a lie.
And he had no reason to step out of this investigation. Every suggestion to the contrary is a lie. This should be seen for what it is, and not used as a pretext to attack and harass others. What is happening to the witnesses, some with no actual involvement in the case, is wrong. It is contrary to the American values of fairness and the constitutional value of a fair trial. It needs to stop now. I am releasing this recorded statement rather than holding a news conference because my remarks need to be so narrowly tailored to the issue at hand while the prosecution is pending in Superior Court. But the message is the same. What is happening to these innocent people, these witnesses, is wrong and it needs to stop. This will be the first.
Oops, there we go. So it needs to stop now. He gave that very unprecedented speech, soliloquy, whatever you want to call it. Um, and we were all floored. Like, what the? That was his speech to the public. Don't harass these poor people that were in the house, and they're obviously the victims. So leave them alone. All right, next. Boston 25 News reports on federal investigation of Karen Reed investigation. So on November 29th, 2023, the supervisor of records of the Public Records Division of the Office of the Secretary of the Commonwealth sent a letter to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office regarding the petition of Ted Daniel, who's from Boston 25 News, appealing the response of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office to a request for public records, which was made on November 1st, seeking any letters, emails, or other correspondence Norfolk DA Morrissey or any members of his staff has sent to any DOJ entity that mention, and then whatever people's names. The supervisor of public records letter indicates the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office responded on November 14th to the Boston 25 News public records request by identifying a single responsive record and withholding that record pursuant. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So, what does it say? The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Okay, so they ordered the supervisor of records office intends on providing a subsequent response to Mr. Daniel, and accordingly ordering the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office to provide Mr. Daniel with a response to his request in a manner consistent with the public records law. 3 days later, on Saturday, December 2nd, a Boston 25 News teaser video was posted online on YouTube announcing a report to be aired on Monday, December 4th at 10:15 p.m. about what 25 Investigates has learned about why are federal authorities looking into the case of Karen Reed. The teaser video includes a video audio snippet of a man identified as a former federal prosecutor stating that they are not investigating the homicide, they are investigating the investigation of the homicide. So there you have it. I'm going to breeze through the rest of these pretty quickly. So some more arguments that they make that the Norfolk County District Attorney was aware of being investigated. So they knew that there was likely some problem going on with the investigation. The disclosed letters, finally, uh, there were 6 letters that were disclosed by the feds. Those disclosed letters include a May 18th 4-page letter sent by District Attorney Michael Morrissey to the Office of Professional Responsibility at the U.S. Department of Justice, requesting that an ongoing investigation being conducted by the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts be transferred to another office without a history of conflict, bias, and abuse of prosecutorial discretion. Um, he also discloses District Attorney Morrissey's knowledge gained 3 weeks later that multiple state witnesses in the Karen Reed case had received subpoenas to appear before a federal grand jury. That shortly after the knowledge of the federal subpoenas was gained, the federal assistant of the U.S. Attorney's Office had a telephone conversation with the first assistant at the Norfolk County's office. So, and I should have read all through that. Basically, um, Morrissey's office wrote these letters to the federal government trying to pretend like they were trying to get discovery for Karen Reed when really they were just trying to fish around and see what the feds knew and what they're investigating. Because I personally think they were already investigating the DA's office due to Sandra Birchmore, which we'll get to. So that's why I think the Karen Reed case kind of got intertwined in it because I think they were already investigating the DA's office for corruption. All right, so and here's part of the argument. I'm just going to read the bullet points from now on until we get to the end. This is a 30-page document, and I didn't even mean to talk this long about it. All right, so the Norfolk District Attorney deliberately and egregiously violated ethical and constitutional due process requirements that warrant the sanction of dismissal. So dismiss the cases altogether because District Attorney Morrissey's video statement requires sanctions. It's totally unprecedented that he came out and took a side. You're not supposed to take a side. District Attorney Morrissey's video statement, widely disseminated to the media, clearly violated her rights. Um, moving on to the next part. Um, B, that was the long part. The Commonwealth's delayed disclosure of and misrepresentations about the federal investigation of the Norfolk District Attorney's Office requires sanctions. So they constantly, the DA's office, Adam Lally included, would misrepresent information about the evidence. And the defense team would find out the truth and call them out on it in these pretrial hearings. And because Bev is as biased as she is, she never did anything about it. So, um, and she saw so much misconduct right in front of her eyes by Lolly, and she just laughs it off. And then Alan Jackson so much as stands up without her approval, and she's like, "Sit down, Mr. Jackson." She's just evil to them. Anyways, C, dismissal of the indictments is the appropriate sanction. So that would be what they would want from this motion. The Norfolk District Attorney's Office has an interest in the outcome of this prosecution other than the interest of justice requiring disqualification of that office from this prosecution. So because they are because they're being investigated by the feds, the DA's office, they have a vested interest in whether Karen Reed is found guilty or not. Because if she's found guilty, if they can prove their case, and it's not corruption or a cover up, then Morrissey's at least clean on this one. But because we know that's not the case, I'm hoping that there are federal indictments coming down soon. I'm hoping to hear that not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and then oh, who's here? That's the feds, and they're gonna come in and serve up some indictments for some people that really should have been on trial here but weren't. All right. Anyways, so moving on. The next point, if I could get my thing to move. Oh, yeah, I wanted to read those. Whoopsies. Let me zoom out. It's easier to look at the whole page. to see where I need to go. All right, so digital crime scene photographs from the 29th through February 4th. The defense's motion to compel digital versions of these photographs was allowed by this court after um, thereafter, ignoring multiple emails and other requests for compliance. The DA's office finally notified the defense on May 3rd that the iPhone used to take the January 29th and February 4th photos no longer existed. To this date, no metadata from these photos has ever been provided. Okay, so that means we have no idea if they actually took it on January 29th, and it could have been, so they could have been staging um, crime scene photos a different day with tail light pieces, potentially. We don't know. Doesn't have the correct data. Confirmation of the preservation of Google geofence data. So, an interesting fact, and I don't think this actually even came up in trial, but Trooper Proctor knew that everyone in that house at 34 Fairview Road had an iPhone. He only requested geofence data for Android phones. So, and then when he got no results, you don't ask for iPhones, you just give up. Okay. I don't understand why, but whatever. Also, inspection of the taillight and housing. The defendant's accident reconstructionist. Oh, so they had some accident reconstructionist before they got the one from the feds. See, Carrie Alvino traveled to Middleborough on May 27th. Here, I can zoom in a little bit more. To inspect the vehicle and to examine the taillight and housing, among other items. When Ms. Alvino arrived, however, she learned that the taillight and housing had not only been removed from the vehicle, but were not even produced for her inspection at all. Well, that's crap. So, yeah, I mean, all this going on behind the scenes before trial even starts. Inspection of John O'Keefe's clothing. They couldn't inspect it for a very long time. They had a motion to compel. The defense followed up with further emails, requests. They still never. It was not until December 1st, 2023, that the defense team was finally able to inspect the clothing in possession of the prosecution. That is nearly 2 years later, guys. Nearly 2 years later. Missing ring videos, and they were supposed to go to trial in April, was their original trial date, I think. I don't know if there was one before that, but I'm pretty sure April was their first trial date. It was like April 16th or something. So missing ring videos, they tried to claim in the trial that Karen Reed deleted some videos, but both the children testified that Karen Reed did not have access to the ring videos. It was only on John's phone. So if ring videos are missing, that can only lead to whoever had John's phone in their possession, which was Mass State Police. All 911 calls, including the complete recording of the call made by Jennifer McCabe. It appears that that was never turned over until late. It was only after multiple email and other requests over several months that the full 911 recording was finally shared with the defense. Identification of an unnamed female witness at 34 Fairview Road. This was Sarah Levinson that the defense didn't know about until the district attorney finally revealed her name in November 2022. Preservation of samples from do you see how long this list is? And they could just keep going on and on and on. Preservation of samples from John's arm for independent testing. They never tested samples from his arm. The one lady who testified to taking samples from his shirt said she took one swab and went all the way around every little nook and cranny in that shirt, contaminating every single spot, because you just went from spot A to spot B. You would need a new swab for each spot if you wanted to do it properly. But no, she took one swab and just went all over the the shirt, and that was to see if there was dog DNA. But they didn't even test his arm, which you would think would have dog DNA embedded in his wounds. So there's that. So why didn't they take that sample? So preservation of samples of John O'Keefe's arm for independent testing. On February 2nd, 2022, the defense filed an emergency motion in the Stoughton District Court for the preservation of evidence, including DNA and liquid serology. I can't say those words because they all get axed from YouTube. All right, so that motion was allowed by the court on the same date after numerous email requests and further motions to compel. The district attorney's office finally revealed in 2023 that no tissue samples were ever even taken from John's arm. Like, seriously? Sorry, that was probably loud. July 2023, they find out a year and a half later that no tissue samples were ever preserved. I wonder, does anybody know? This is a good question. If they were to excavate his body, would you be able to find DNA from a dog on his tissue if there's any tissue left, or would that not hold up? I don't know. I'm just very I mean obviously tissue eventually would um rot away, but if it isn't complete, if there's still tissue left, wouldn't they be able to get DNA from a dog? I'm just wondering if any DNA people out there know, that would be great. Just my mind just went to that. Anyways, all right, so Canton Town Library surveillance footage in its original format. So we know that uh, the Canton Town Library, she would have been driving home from 34 Fairview Road to John's house right at the exact time when, oh, guess what? Canton Town Library's surveillance video goes out. It's missing the exact 2 minutes when she would be driving by. And guess what that is significant of? If we could have seen her car in that 2 minutes that was lost, we would be able to potentially look at her taillight and see if it's still intact or if there's any kind of damage to her taillight. But I don't know. Just video footage mysteriously disappears or it reverses itself or phones just dial people with no rhyme or reason and they answer people's phones also, even when you don't want them to. It's weird, huh? All the crazy stuff that happens in Canton. All right, so that the library footage is missing. The Lexus infotainment and telematics systems. Ms. Reed Lexus was seized by investigators when they had their Carrie Alvino or Alvino when she went to go inspect the vehicle. She learned only when she arrived that the infotainment and telematics systems had been removed from the vehicle. Those systems were not produced to date. Or on that date, sorry. After several email requests from the defense, the district attorney's office only made those systems available for inspection by the defense on December 1st, 2023. Remember, they were going to trial April 16th. That's not a lot of time to still be going through all this discovery, and they would have had it right away. They should have had it, but they had already taken it out and were working on reviewing it or whatever they were doing with that at that point. All police reports and notes the defense team has not received. Those notes, the district attorney's office did not produce any notes until September 29th, 2023, and those notes were portions from the MSP. The district attorney's office then revealed that notes from the Canton police and the CERT team do not exist. The CERT team. the team that went out there to go look for evidence didn't even write a report. Interesting, huh? So, those are all the reasons why Karen Reed and her team wanted wanted sanctions for Michael Morrissey, and also to get her. Similar things came up in the motion to dismiss, because they also did a motion to dismiss, which was also really well written and I thought should have been granted, but it wasn't. But of course, it's Bev Canoni, and that's why. All right, so next up, I want to shift gears from Karen Reed, and we're going to talk Sandra Birchmore. I know I didn't mean to really talk about it this long already, but so Sandra Birchmore, we're going to read a couple different articles about her. So this article, I actually subscribed to the Boston Globe so I could get it. Um, there's this was the most recent article I could find on the Boston Globe about Sandra Birchmore, and this has all the information about the most recent update with the the forensic pathologist that the family hired to reevaluate her life that was lost. All right. So here's what to know about the Sandra Birchmore case. A forensic pathologist hired by Birchmore's estate believes that she lost her life by homicide, contradicting findings by state investigators who say she took her own life. And I do have the trigger warning because of that topic. This is a sensitive topic. I'm not going to say the word, but I like to say self-deletion because it sounds better and YouTube doesn't hate it. All right, so a prominent forensic pathologist hired by the family of Sandra Birchmore, you might even know him, a young pregnant woman who lost her life in 2021, has ruled that her homicide was actually a homicide. It wasn't natural or any other means. So the finding by Dr. Michael Baden, he is a world-renowned forensic pathologist. He used to have a show, I think, on HBO or something about his autopsies and stuff. I used to love watching that when I was younger. I think, oh, Karen Reed, hold on, guys. There might be something going on here. Sorry about that. As I'm recording, I'm also on Verdict Watch because I'm trying to. I had my phone in the background, playing the fan, the fan of the courtroom waiting for the screen to move until we had some action. And I had some action, but it seems like or there was some action, but it seemed like really just wrote. Why am I having such a hard time saying words? The jury wrote to the um, court asking to go home, and it was or a quarter to 4, 5, I don't know, whatever time it is, a quarter to 4, and she let him go home early. So there's that. Um, so they're back tomorrow for starting day 4 of deliberations. I cannot believe that it's taking this long, honestly. I thought it would be pretty clear cut, but maybe there's a holdout, or maybe they're trying to solve it and say, yeah, we find her not guilty on everything, and we want you to prosecute these individuals. That would be great. That's what I would write on my jury form. Um, I was gonna play the Boston 10 news clip about when Ted Daniels found out about, but it's not even the Ted Daniels clip, when they found out that Michael Proctor was going to be investigated. So let me play just a quick little portion of it, and then we'll move on to Sandra Birchmore. Yeah, we were starting that, but Sorry, here.
State Police confirming the lead investigator in the Karen Reed murder case, Trooper Michael Proctor, is under investigation for a potential violation of department policy. While they're not commenting on what may have sparked this internal investigation, and they say Proctor remains on active duty, we know it came to light just one day after a bombshell hearing in the case against Reed. Reed is charged with second-degree murder in John O'Keefe's death, accused of striking her Boston police officer boyfriend with her SUV in 2022. Thanks in part to information stemming from a federal investigation of this case, Reed's attorney alleged Proctor never fully disclosed his personal relationship with multiple people involved in the case. That includes the Albert family, who lived at the home on the property where O'Keefe's body was found. In fact, just days prior to O'Keefe's death, Proctor had allegedly asked the Alberts to babysit his child.
Michael Proctor is so connected to the Alberts that he was entrusting them or willing to entrust the Alberts.
This was a pretrial hearing. This was when we first learned that Courtney Proctor or Michael Proctor asked for a gift for not himself, but for his wife, Courtney,
to be caregivers for his toddler child.
Text messages from 3 days after O'Keefe's death also allegedly show the Alberts offered to send Proctor a thank you gift, quote, when this is all over.
So now we have the lead investigator from Massachusetts State Police literally discussing the exchange of gifts between the Albert family on the one hand and the Proctor family on the other hand as a thank you, their words, for helping the Alberts out of a jam.
Criminal defense attorney Ben Urbella says with Proctor's ethics being called into question, the entire case will face additional scrutiny.
I think that when you have the lead...
All right, that's good. So you see what that was about and why he's under federal investigation, why he still has a job after the things that came out on through the trial when he was on the stand reading his text messages. I can't believe he still has a position in MSP. Although I don't think they stand with him anymore. I think they're probably waiting for a verdict so they can like personally put out a statement or something and say that we don't agree with him or blah blah blah. But that's too late. They should do it now. All right, so back to our Sandra Birchmore case. So sorry. So we didn't get very far, did we? A prominent forensic pathologist hired by the family of Sandra Birchmore ruled that her homicide, her loss of life, was a homicide and not something else. So the findings by Dr. Michael Baden, which I was talking about earlier, he had a TV show. I think it was on HBO or something. That's my dog. I don't know if you guys heard that, but he just like he moaned really loudly, trying to lay down. He sounds like an old man when he lays down. I'm looking up this Michael Baden, medical examiner, so you guys can see his picture. You probably recognize him. He's been in a lot of different things, testified for a lot of different high-profile cases. He's a lead guy here. Oh, I thought they had because that looks like his picture from the old TV show that he had, but it's not. They're talking about that guy whose name I can't say, who may or may not have taken his own life as well in prison. So that's why he was introduced into that. All right, so a prominent forensics pathologist, this Dr. Michael Baden, contradicts findings of the state investigators who have previously said that Birchmore lost her life by taking it herself, and there was no evidence of foul play. That has completely changed now. There's a lot of suspicion into the loss of her life, and having this forensic pathologist say this, I really, really hope that they get some answers because I'm going to bring up a filing in a little bit where charges from the Birchmore estate that were trying to press charges on the police officers involved here were dismissed. And so I'm hoping that maybe they have some recourse after that, because I don't. I'll be reading this in a little bit, which is Darlene Smith versus Matthew Falwell et al., which is it's an amended decision and order regarding the defendant's motion to dismiss. Oh, the defendant dismissed it? The defendant's motion to dismiss. I don't know why she dismissed it, but I think maybe they came to some kind of agreement. I'm not really sure. Um, so I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Hold on one second. Sorry, I just had to get readjusted. Comfortable? No more interruptions. All right, so Birchmore's estate asked Baden to review Birchmore's autopsy as they pursue a wrongful homicide suit in which they allege 3 former Stoughton police officers engaged in a near-decade-long scheme of grooming and repeated assaults, culminating in her life being lost at 23. Her body was found in her Canton apartment on February 4th, 2021. So this is the year prior to when John O'Keefe was found with his life lost on the lawn of 34 Fairview Road. All right, so no criminal charges have been filed. Here's what to know about the case. So at this point in time, it was ruled as a self-deletion by the medical examiner, um, who probably was influenced very much by the Massachusetts State Police that were investigating the case. And we'll get to why that's important. So here's what to know. Who was Sandra Birchmore? Birchmore grew up in Stoughton and endured significant mental and emotional problems, her estate's attorneys have said in court papers. And she also had difficulty after her grandfather and mother lost their lives when she was just a teenager. She enrolled in a youth program run by the Stoughton Police Department at age 13, and she, quote, deeply respected law enforcement officers, according to a wrongful unaliving lawsuit, which was, I'm assuming, done by this Darlene Smith, who is the one on Sandra Birchmore's behalf. All right, so that's gotta be rough. Her mom and her grandmother both gone when she was a teenager. She enrolled in the youth program. She deeply respected law enforcement. Through the youth program, she met 3 officers: Robert C. Devine, 52, a former deputy chief in Stoughton who previously led the youth program; Matthew G. Farwell, 38, a former Stoughton detective; and his twin brother, William Farwell, all of whom resigned from the department in 2022. So the following year, they left the MSP. Or Stoughton, sorry, Stoughton department. They were Stoughton cops, not MSP, Stoughton. So they are defendants in the lawsuit brought by Birchmore's estate, and they have denied the allegations. Oh, that's a beautiful ad. Let's go there, everybody. Let's all save up our money and go here. This looks very nice. All right, before she lost her life, Birchmore claimed Matthew Farwell was the father of her unborn child. Farwell has said that he wasn't the father, which goes along with some claims that uh, some individuals that knew her said that he didn't want anything to do with her child. Look how little she is over here. She's so little. Like, how could you even? I mean, all of them are little, but like, she's the littlest of them all. That is so disgusting that they would prey on her. What did the forensic pathologist hired by Birchmore's family say about her homicide? Bond reviewed records from the autopsy of Birchmore performed by the state medical examiner's office and found that she lost her life by homicide, according to a letter he sent last week to a lawyer for Birchmore's estate. His determination differs from the conclusion of the state's medical examiner, which wrote on her death certificate in 2021 that it was ruled a self deletion. Ms. Birchmore did not lose her life of self deletion hanging, according to Bodden in his June 18th letter. The cause of Ms. Birchmore's loss of life is strangulation, and the manner in which it happened is homicide. Bodden said that Birchmore fractured her right hypoid bone, a small U-shaped bone in her neck. Citing the textbook Forensic Pathology, Bodden wrote, such a fracture occurs rarely, if at all, in self-deletion hangings and does occur in half of homicidal strangulations of women. So it seems very much more likely that it was not self-deletion, but someone did that to her. We'll get to the rest of it. Well, she was found in her apartment. I mean, I know we read that, but she had, I think it was a belt or something around her neck and the door handle. So, like, she was on the floor, she was on the ground, and she was like tied to the doorknob or something. And just the manner that alone is a little odd for a self-deletion. Like, not too many people would do it on a doorknob. So I don't know. It did seem like her crime scene might have been like she was fixed, like the staged. Anyways, all right. Oh, here they do explain the doorknob. All right. So he also wrote about the ligature found by investigators. The ligature was entangled in Birchmore's hair, which occurs when there is resistance during homicidal strangulation. Can confirm my hair tangles up in everything. So if I was moving around and doing that, it would definitely get tangled up in a ligature for sure. All right, and tied to a doorknob, which he believes was done to give the appearance of a self-deletion hanging. So like I was just saying, it was staged to make it look like that. So Bodden also raised other questions about the investigation, writing that the state medical examiner, quote unquote, apparently didn't have fetal tissue taken from Birchmore tested for DNA to determine the identity of the unborn child's father. You didn't take a DNA test from the baby to find out who the father was when it's apparent that it could very well be a homicide here. Anyways, swabs from Birchmore's body, hair, and fingernail clippings and clothing she was wearing were taken for one of those R kits, SA kits. But Baden wrote that it appears the evidence was not even tested. A spokesperson for the Norfolk District Attorney, Michael W. Morrissey, there's Michael Morrissey, putting his big ugly head into this case, and um, there's there's the connection. Michael Morrissey needs to go. All you people in Massachusetts, Norfolk County, go and make him resign. Like, I would put up a picket outside of his office every day with signs to make him resign. You know, once the Karen Reed movement leaves the courthouse, that's where they should go, is Morrissey's office. They've done standouts at Morrissey's office before, but I think they really need to put the heat on him after this case concludes. Anyways, A spokesperson for Norfolk District Attorney Michael W. Morrissey, which took control of the investigation into Birchmore's homicide after her body was found by Canton police, said in an email that forensic and DNA testing has been done on items with the potential to produce evidence of the potential crimes being investigated, and other items have been preserved. We would not comment with greater specificity while multiple agencies continue to investigate, said David Traub, the spokesperson. Spokespeople for the state police and the office of the chief medical examiner didn't respond to questions about Baden's claims concerning the fetal tissue and the SA kit that was never tested, and declined to comment on his findings, citing ongoing citing ongoing investigations. I don't know why that last sentence was so hard. I'm sorry. All right, so who is Dr. Michael Baden? Baden is a forensic pathologist who served as a chief medical examiner in New York City from 1978 to 1979 and directed the medical legal investigations unit for the New York State Police from 85 to 2011, according to a copy of his resume. And he is still doing it. He's still making stuff happen. He has been involved in a series of high-profile investigations. Baden led a panel on a U.S. House committee that reinvestigated the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1970s, conducted autopsies of the bodies of George Floyd and Michael Brown at the request of their families, and testified for the defense at O.J. Simpson's trial. The family of disgraced financier, that guy, Jeff E., also hired Baden to observe his autopsy by New York City officials after his life ended in 2019 at a federal correctional facility or center where he was awaiting trial on a whole mess of charges. In his case, Baden also found a hyoid bone fracture, among other injuries. And he told the TV show Fox and Friends that the evidence points to homicide rather than self-deletion. The New York City medical examiner strongly disputed Baden's findings in his case, that guy's case, telling that you can't say his name on YouTube either. Telling the New York Times that fractures of the hyoid bone and the cartilage can be seen in both self-deletions and homicides. What have state investigators said about Birchmore's death? On February 1st, 2021, surveillance cameras captured Matthew Farwell arriving and then leaving Birchmore's apartment building in Canton, and he was the last known person to see her alive. A Stoughton Police Internal Affairs report wrote, Birchmore's body was found there 3 days later. During an interview on February 6th with State Police, Farwell gave an account of his encounter with Birchmore at her apartment 5 days earlier. That's Farwell, Matthew. He said that he told Birchmore that he wasn't the father of her unborn child, it was all over, and he was blocking her from all forms of communication, according to State Police Lieutenant John Fanning. That name should be familiar because anyone who was watching the Karen Reed trial, you might not have realized this, but his name came up. It did come up in the group text between Sergeant Buchanan and others regarding Karen. And was it Buchanan or was it Proctor? Now I'm confusing myself. It was one of them. I think he was on the Karen Reed one, or I'm sorry, the Proctor ones. Now I'm confusing myself. Lieutenant Fanning was definitely on some group texts where they were talking about the case and demoralizing and dehumanizing Karen Reed in those texts. Like the one I really think it was Proctor now that I'm thinking about it, and I said Buchanan first, but I think I was thinking Proctor. So Matt said that Sandra was upset, but she did not make any kinds of self-deletion statements, according to Fanning. Fanning, the lieutenant, the boss of Sergeant Buchanan, and um, it had to be Buchanan because he's the sergeant. I don't know. I can't remember now. I feel like my brain is just so fried from this trial. It's been going on for so long and it's so hard to keep track of all the details. So I apologize. But yes, John Fanning, I know Lieutenant Fanning was part of a group text demeaning and demoralizing Karen Reed and was allowing his subordinates to be going about doing this. And he was laughing and all that stuff too. So participating. Anyway, so Matt said that Sandra was upset, but she did not make any kinds of statements like that. Matt said that he left and Sandra was standing in the kitchen when he walked out. In 2022, Farwell told the Globe in a statement that he had not committed any crimes. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go back to the video. I kind of kept reading and I wanted to go to the video with Matthew Farwell. So this, I think he only gave any kind of account of his encounter with Birchmore because he was caught on camera. So I'm going to actually play really quickly a here. This is there's no sound. This is the surveillance video from outside the apartment building, um, the lobby area of her apartment building, I should say. And we'll look at it a couple times. So that man right there leaving is likely. Oops. Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Sorry. Get rid of myself. All right. So that is Sandra. And she's walking into the elevator with a snow brush in her hand. It's now 21:28:03 on the clock. 21:28. It's 21:56:35 and he's leaving. Let's watch that one more time. The last time she's seen. I think 21 is like 9 o'clock, 9:30. 21:28 would be 9:30. And watch him as he comes out the elevator. He slowly, like, look at it one more time and just take a look at him. When he comes out of the elevator, he, sorry, I had to like click on and click off on this to make it go. So she's, again, taking the elevator. She clicks the button. She goes in. She's on a phone texting. And then this guy with a mask comes in, keeping his head down, not looking at the camera. And when he comes back out, he's going to look at the camera real quick, but put his head back down real fast. And I mean, it happens really fast. I have to slow it down to show you. But um, yeah, that was Matthew Farwell in the video. So now he had to say something about his presence being in the apartment. So he was in the apartment, but mm, and we're just supposed to believe that she did it herself. All right, so where were we? Not committed. He says he did not commit any crimes. All right, so in papers filed last year in Stoughton District Court, Fanning said investigators and the medical examiner determined Birchmore lost her life by self-deletion based on physical evidence in her apartment, her mental health history, past ideations, which resulted in her being involuntarily committed, her writings, and medical findings. And that is horrific. If that's true and she was really struggling with these thoughts, with these ideations in her writings and going to see medical doctors about these things, I mean, then it was real. Like this fear, and she was being groomed since she was 13. At this point, she was 23. So for 10 years, 13 to 23, that's like all the best years of your childhood and your freedom, you know? And here she is being groomed and repeatedly passed around by a bunch of disgusting pigs. And that's not even a cop reference. I just think they're disgusting pigs. Pigs are actually smart and cute and, can be lovable. So it's not a bit, it's kind of an insult to pigs, I guess. All right, so Fanning didn't specify when Birchmore was involuntarily committed, but other records obtained by the Globe show that Stoughton police were summoned on her home or to her home on May 19th, 2020 for a well-being check. A dispatcher told officers that Birchmore was saying that she wanted to harm herself. According to police radio call recordings, the Farwell brothers and Devine weren't involved in the police response, the records show. Why is Birchmore's estate suing? The wrongful homicide complaint brought by Birchmore's estate alleges that she was the victim of an ongoing scheme of grooming and misconduct that ultimately led to the loss of her life. The Farwell brothers and Devine are named as defendants and deny the allegations. The estate is also suing the town of Stoughton for negligence, which it denies. Birchmore met Matthew Farwell through a Stoughton Police youth program, which was run like a junior police academy. This is just like a whole new circle of children to prey upon every time a new class starts. This youth program. All right, so the lawsuit alleges he began having relations with her when she was 15 and he was 27, a claim that he denies. I read that she was 13 somewhere. All right, so if that allegation is true, or that they started grooming her, sorry, at 13, so I guess they didn't take it to another level until she was 15. Such a gentleman. If that allegation is true, those actions would be statutory R, as the age of consent in Massachusetts is 16. The Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, or POST, the state's police watchdog agency, has also accused William Farwell of encouraging Birchmore to secretly record her encounters with others and send him the photos or videos. One photo sent by Birchmore to William Farwell on August 16th, 2020 depicted the male genitalia of an unnamed Stoughton officer, according to Post records, which refers to Birchmore by her initials. This is William Farwell. He resigned. They all, I believe, resigned. William Farwell was aware that Birchmore believed she was pregnant with Matthew Farwell's child and that Devine was also having relations with her. Norfolk Superior Court Judge Brian A. Davis wrote in a ruling, Devine reportedly began engaging in inappropriate suggestive conduct with Birchmore when she was in the Explorer program, Davis wrote, and by 2020, he was having full-fledged encounters with her at various locations. This is Robert Devine, retired. He was a chief deputy. Robert Devine, retired. Retired? I hope he's not getting a pension still from the state. Who is investigating Birchmore's case? Several government agencies have opened investigations into Birchmore's homicide. The Stoughton Police Department also conducted an internal affairs investigation into the Farwell brothers. Sound familiar? Internal investigation? We had that in the Karen Reed case. So now there's an internal investigation with the Farwell brothers and Devine, concluding that they had inappropriate relations with her. In March, the Globe reported that the FBI had begun interviewing people who knew Birchmore. And last fall, an earlier investigation into Birchmore's case by Morrissey was taken over by the Office or State Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. So, what does that tell you when the Attorney General comes into your home and says, I'm taking this over? Because Morrissey wasn't doing a good job in it. And that's this year. So that's in March. The FBI began interviewing people who knew her. Last fall is when Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell came in. A spokesperson for the FBI and Campbell's office declined to comment on Boden's findings. Trobe, Morrissey's spokesperson, said that this is an active and open investigation, and multiple law enforcement agencies continue to review all information as it comes available. In a statement, Stoughton Police Chief Donna McNamara said that she had read Boden's findings. So that's the chief. She made a statement. I thought about playing that, but we have quotes from her here herself. She says, quote, I was profoundly disturbed and troubled by what I read. While I am not a trained medical examiner and I'm not qualified to draw any direct conclusions, the findings certainly warrant further examination at the highest level, said McNamara, who was named chief in 2017 after being appointed to lead the department on an interim basis the year before. So if this happened under her watch and she's the chief, shouldn't she be held accountable too? I'm wondering why she hasn't been yet. I don't know. Stoughton police don't have the authority to investigate Birchmore's homicide because she lost her life in Canton, McNamara said. But the force has assisted other agencies, so I wonder if that means they might start to combine forces. I'm not sure. So that was a Boston Globe article, the most recent up-to-date information that we have on Sandra Birchmore. So I was going to actually read through, not this whole thing, but this is so you understand a little bit more about what Sandra went through. I'm going to read you the factual background. This is from the, was it the Darlene Smith versus Matthew Farwell et al., and it was the amended decision order regarding defendant's motions to dismiss. And I'm skipping through the judge's orders. I just want to look at the factual background and share that with you. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here so you guys can see better. All right, so as previously noted, this case arises primarily from the alleged multi-year grooming and exploitation of Ms. Birchmore from an early age. Sensitive content to people, just a warning, trigger warning, this is going to be rough. So for the grooming and exploitation of Miss Birchmore from an early age by 3 former members of the Stoughton PD, which plaintiff claims precipitated Ms. Birchmore's self-deletion in February 2021. Ms. Birchmore, who was born in May of 1997, grew up in the town of Stoughton. During her childhood, she suffered the loss of her mother and her grandmother. She also suffered significant mental health and emotional problems, for which she received psychological treatment. By all accounts, Ms. Birchmore deeply admired authority figures, particularly police officers. In 2011, she joined the Stoughton PD Explorers program. The Explorers, also known as the Explorers program or the program. which was run like a junior police academy for young persons between the ages of 13 and 18. Ms. Birchmore was just 14 years old when she joined the program. Defendant Devine served as the head of the Explorers program beginning in 2003, and it was in that capacity that he got to know Ms. Birchmore and became aware of her difficult home life and circumstances. I have not read this through. This is the first time I'm reading, and this makes me angry. He preyed on her. He found out she came from a vulnerable background. She was in a vulnerable place, and he totally took advantage of that. Sick, sick person. All right, so defendants M. Farwell and W. Farwell, so Matt and William, were Stoughton PD officers who served as instructors in the Explorers program. They too first became familiar with Ms. Birchmore through the program. It is central to plaintiff's claims in this action that defendants Devine, M. Farwell, and W. Farwell all eventually entered into physical relationships with Ms. Birchmore. Defendant M. Farwell appears to have been the first, as he reportedly took Ms. Birchmore's first time in April 2013 when she was 15 years old. I don't want to repeat that word. I don't know if it's a good word for YouTube, so I won't. Ms. Birchmore's relationship with M. Farwell continued to at least October 2020. Their relationship allegedly came to an end on the evening of February 1st, 2021, i.e., 3 days before Ms. Birchmore's body was discovered, after they had a, quote, nasty argument inside her apartment in Canton. That was the last occasion on which anyone saw Ms. Birchmore alive. At the time of her homicide, Ms. Birchmore was pregnant with what plaintiff alleges was defendant M. Farwell's child. So, true crime junkies, who's the first person you look at when there's a homicide? Usually it's the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the wife, husband, whatever, the significant other. And yes, I agree. In Karen Reed's case, they should have looked at her. I mean, they should have questioned her, no doubt. But when the evidence didn't line up, they should have been like, well, hey, wait a minute. She should be cleared because this is exculpatory for her and not get so blinded by their hatred of her because she was an outsider or whatever it was. But usually in true crime, you look at the boyfriend's jealous ex, whatever first. That's usually a good starting point. So I don't know why he wouldn't think that he might be under some scrutiny here. But because he's a cop, and not just any cop, he's an MSP under District Attorney Morrissey, who lets corruption just run rampant under his watch. All right, so the defendant Devine had a physical relationship with Ms. Birchmore as well, although the exact timing and duration of their relationship is less clear. Devine reportedly began engaging in inappropriate, suggestive conduct with Ms. Birchmore while she was still a member of the Explorers program, but by 2020 she was having full-fledged encounters with her. He was having full-fledged encounters with her at various locations, including inside his Stoughton PD patrol car. Class act. Defendant Devine's relationship with Ms. Birchmore appears to have been ongoing at the time of her death, so it was still happening. The precise timing and duration of defendant W. Farwell's physical relationship with Ms. Birchmore, trying to talk fast, or not trying to talk fast, am a fast talker, and when I try to read and speak at the same time, I just slur my words, so I apologize. I'll slow down a little bit. The precise timing and duration of defendant W. Farwell's physical relationship with Ms. Birchmore also is unclear. W. Farwell met Ms. Birchmore when she was a teenager, or a teenage member of the Explorers program, and their relationship became physical in nature no later than April 2020, at which time he was regularly sending her explicit texts, photographs, and videos, and meeting her for relations in his patrol car and at other places. On at least one occasion, he asked and encouraged Ms. Birchmore also to have relations with, quote, other people at the department. W. Farwell knew that Ms. Birchmore was engaged in physical relationships with defendants M. Farwell, so his twin brother, and Devine, so the deputy or chief deputy. What was his role? I can't remember. I think it's like chief deputy or something like that. All right, so Devine, I don't know how it's pronounced. And he shared some of the details of those relationships with him. Oh, okay, so Farwell knew that Birchmore was engaged in relations with Matthew and Devine, and she shared some of those details with him. He also knew by late 2020 that Birchmore believed she was carrying M. Farwell's baby. As with defendant Devine, W. Farwell's relationship with Ms. Birchmore appears to have been ongoing at the time of her homicide. The history of defendant Heel's relationship with Ms. Birchmore is different. Heel was never a member of the Stoughton PD, and he never participated in the Explorers program. Rather, Heel served for a time at the town's animal control officer, and he first met Ms. Birchmore when she came to the local animal shelter sometime in 2019 to adopt a cat. Heel and Miss Birchmore became friends, and over time she began to confide in him about intimate details of her life, including her physical relationships with defendants M. Farwell, W. Farwell, and Devine. Heel eventually had a single consensual physical encounter with Ms. Birchmore when she was an adult after closing hours at the animal shelter. That is the full extent of Heel's relationship with Ms. Birchmore. And while plaintiff alleges that Heel's single consensual um, encounter with Ms. Birchmore when she was an adult contributed to her self deletion, she does not allege, and there is no evidence in the record that Heel ever cooperated or conspired with the other defendants to exploit her or to groom her or do any of that while she was a teenager. So that's the difference between Mr. Officer Heel. Sorry, I forgot his name already. All right, so Divine M. Farwell and W. Farwell's years long pattern of grooming and ABUSE, beginning when Ms. Birchmore was a minor, over the duration of the program and beyond, together with Heel's later ABUSE, further exacerbated the decedent's underlying mental health issues and difficult home life, and eventually resulted in her alleged. And so this is obviously when the family believes that it was still an alleged self-deletion, and they didn't have Dr. Botton's report, obviously, at this point, because they're referring to it, even the family's referring to it as self-deletion, but they're just saying alleged because they don't think it's actually self-deletion. So on February 4th, 2021, members of the Canton Police Department conducted a well-being check of Ms. Birchmore at her apartment because she had not reported to work for several days. Upon entering the apartment, Canton PD personnel found her unresponsive in a bedroom with a strap tied around her neck that was attached to a closet door. Responding paramedics pronounced her no longer alive at the scene. And that's where we're going to stop on this document. I'm getting hot. It's like one of those warmer days, and then I'm up here with my bedroom where I record is hot, so sometimes I might have to go downstairs to record. Sorry, let me take a break. Hold on one second. All right, let's dive into this last little bit here. So I am going to read for you, lastly, a it's an older article, but it's from this year, April 1st of 2024, from Turtleboy Aiden Carney's blog. Well, he calls it a blog, but it really is like news. He writes news every day on it, and well, during this trial, he hasn't been updating it daily, but usually he has stories that he posts on there on a regular basis, usually daily. And they're investigative journalistic stories that he's writing. And this in particular is so I don't know if you know Turtle Boy, if you love him, hate him, whatever, he still does report on the news. And I'm using his blog as a source because he's the best source when it comes to Karen Reed and Norfolk District Attorney's Office. All right, so this article, what did he call it? Here's the title. It's The Canton Cover-Up Part 322, FBI Investigation into Sandra Birchmore Case is Good Sign for Justice for John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. So here is a picture of Sandra Birchmore next to, this is Robert Devine, the chief, deputy chief. It's police, deputy police chief, Robert Devine, deputy police chief, sleeping with a minor. And this is, I don't know who that is, pictured with Morrissey. I think it's him too. Yeah, it's the same guy. All right, so here's Turtle Boy's article. And the reason I'm reading this is because you're going to see how Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore connect. You're going to see a bunch of the same players involved. You're going to hear some of the same names in the investigation. Obviously, she lived in Canton, so it was Canton officers who came and responded. But you're going to hear some names that you know. So let's dive into this one, and then that'll be the last article, I think, for this episode. All right, so an underreported story from back in April or March, I guess, was the last week, from the last week of March, was the news that the FBI had launched an investigation into the 2021 self-deletion of Sandra Birchmore in Canton. Birchmore was a 23-year-old pregnant woman who was groomed by several Stoughton police officers while participating in a school program designed to gear kids towards a career in law enforcement. How sick is that? That's Sandra Birchmore Wright, pictured with then Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine when she was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers program as a teenager. Look how little she looks. She's so young looking. How could you even think of her in that manner? I just can't understand people. All right, so the last person who saw her alive was disgraced Stoughton Detective Matthew Farwell, who was seen leaving her apartment shortly after arriving. We watched that. Birchmore was pregnant with his child, and he wasn't happy about it. So we already watched that. I, FYI, he does have a very like ad pop-up-y website, so I prefer to put it as a PDF, so I hope it's readable. All right, so number 3. This is sorry, this is coming from some of the court documents regarding the investigation into Sandra Birchmore's homicide. However, this is redacted, and I don't have the whole portion of it, but this is someone who was a source. They redacted the name of the source. So the source stated that she had seen a Facebook message regarding Birchmore's unaliving and did a Google search and got an uneasy feeling, which is what prompted her to contact investigators. She stated that she was aware that Birchmore was sleeping with a married man and knew that Birchmore had been trying to get pregnant. She was trying to get pregnant, apparently. The source said that Birchmore had told her that she and the baby's father had talked about getting pregnant, but the source had gotten the impression that the father may not have been on board with the pregnancy. The source said that Birchmore had told her that the baby's father did not want to sign the birth certificate. The source stated that she last saw Birchmore on January 30th at the salon. She stated that Birchmore had been calling her about once a week, but that she typically would not answer the phone when she saw Birchmore calling her, and she would instead text her back. According to the source, Birchmore seemed to be happy about the pregnancy. Birchmore told the source that she had told the father of the baby how much money he would have to pay her per month once the baby was born. According to a source, Birchmore told her that she would be demanding $4,000 per month from the baby's father plus an additional $3,000 for daycare. The source stated that Birchmore had already picked out a specific daycare center, the Creative World Children's Learning Center in southeastern Mass. This source noted that it was not even a month into her pregnancy when Birchmore told her all of this. Source stated that Birchmore told her that the baby's father was in denial, saying that it was not his child. Birchmore told her that he did not seem happy about the pregnancy. The source further stated that Birchmore seemed set on having the baby alone if he was not going to be involved and stated that she did not need help. The source stated that said that Birchmore seemed completely okay with that. The source stated that Birchmore told her that she had told the baby's father about the pregnancy a few days after Christmas. Apparently, the father was upset about the pregnancy and sentence redacted. What's that about? She then kicked him out of the apartment. So, what happened that she kicked him out of the apartment? I really want to know. They redacted this whole sentence and I'm mad about it. She then kicked him out of the apartment. The source stated that Birchmore told her that he had said, "I wish you would end yourself," or "I wish you were no longer alive." And that brings me to our latest video clip of the day. We're going to listen to the very last moments of cross-examination with, oops, let me turn that up. We're going to watch the last few moments of cross-examination from Alan Jackson and Trooper Michael Proctor, MSP, Massachusetts State Police, still for some reason. And he's going to tell us about his texts with his buddies talking about Karen Reed. So here we go.
Yes, sir.
You see an entry from Courtney Proctor, a text starting, "I didn't give my."
Yes.
Request permission to publish, Your Honor.
Yes.
2526, Mr. Bates. On that date, February 4th, 2022, your sister texted in relation to some sort of donation that she had given, "I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael," meaning you, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Okay, take that down.
Before they do, you can see this is Courtney Proctor, his sister he's talking to, right? Courtney is his sister. I don't. My brain is so fried today. All right, so Courtney Proctor. She says something. "I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael." And I don't know who she's talking about because it must be Michael Link. Because why would she call her brother Michael in the third person? But then look, his response is hopefully she ends herself. So that's what Michael Proctor wanted of Karen Reed to do so that all of his problems would go away and he wouldn't have to testify on the stand and potentially lose his job, lose any credibility that he ever had, and his complete reputation, and risk going to prison. So Lolly objects. They have a sidebar, and we skip through some letters.
You see the text from Courtney Proctor. I did not give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me.
So that's stricken. That's what was objected to, just this one. Or the whole page goes in.
You responded to a text message from your sister, correct? And your response was, hopefully, she kills herself, correct?
Yes.
Who's she?
The defendant.
Miss Reed?
Correct.
You literally said that you hope that Karen Reed, the subject of your investigation, the woman sitting to my left, about 7 feet from me, that she would just die, correct?
The figure of speech.
You wanted her to, the figure of speech is you wanted her to kill herself.
No.
Right?
No, it's not.
Trooper Proctor, Karen Reed, in your investigation, had quickly become a very serious problem for you, hadn't she?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you believe that Karen Reed was a problem or an issue for your investigation?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, absolutely not.
In your words, quote, all the powers that be want answers ASAP. That's what you texted on January 29th, right?
Yes.
That put a lot of pressure on you, didn't it, Trooper Proctor?
There's a lot of pressure in every case, sir.
This case involves a Boston cop whose family you were actually connected to, correct?
Loosely.
Chris Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Julie Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Colin Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Kevin Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Loose enough to leave his badge and his gun in your cruiser after a night of drinking, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You agreed in your
Kevin Albert was on scene and investigated the Sandra Birchmore case. That is another reason why this is all connected and weird and crazy. So, yeah, Kevin Albert, Michael Lank, all those guys were there as well.
group chat that you needed to, quote, make this cut and dry because another cop was involved. Those are your words, right?
Objection.
Where is this?
This was referred to in earlier text messages, group chats. This morning.
So is that right? Did you say that, sir?
I did text that. I don't know if it's in the exact context. But yes, those were my words.
Group chat.
Yes, that was in the group chat.
Your friends wrote this whole thing in their words, stinks, correct?
Yes, I interpret that as a joke.
You believed, Trooper Proctor, that your life would be much easier if Karen Reed was just dead, didn't you?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No. Like I said, it was a figure of speech. My emotions got the best of me based on, the fact that Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle and left him to die on the side of the road. So my emotions got the best of me with that figure of speech.
Well, let's talk about your figures of speech. During the course of your investigation, your figures of speech include the following. She's a bitch.
Objection.
Is that right?
Yes.
A whack job, correct?
Yes.
A retard, right?
Yes.
Her balloon knot leaks, right?
Yes.
No ass, correct?
Yes.
She's fucked, according to you, right?
Yes.
Ass leaker. That was a word you used, a figure of speech, right?
Correct.
A girl who shits herself, right?
Correct.
And then fuck her, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree, Trooper Proctor, that you have dehumanized Karen Reed during the course of your investigation with comments and words like this?
Objection.
I'll give you this one, Mr. Jackson.
Would you agree with that?
I would say based off that language, yes.
And you admit
You better admit to that. My God, he was trying to weasel his way out of it and say something to get out of it, but no, he couldn't think of it. You saw him like, I don't know. Like, should I or shouldn't I lie here?
admitted, in your own words, that the cop homeowner wasn't going to, quote, catch any shit, right?
Correct.
Because you were out to quote, make this cut and dry. Isn't that right?
The homeowner wasn't going to catch any shit because Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Because you were going to make sure that the case was cut and dry. Those were your words, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
And Trooper Proctor, it would be far easier for you to pin it on the girl who's just a whack job cunt, in your words, who you hope just kills herself, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why is that sustained? Because he obviously said those words.
Shame on you, sir.
And that's a beautiful way to end it. And then Bev has to ruin it by saying, okay, what the lawyers say isn't in evidence. You know better, Jackson, not to make your statements. Okay. She's awful, Judge Bev. But anyway, so yeah, that is how Massachusetts State Police talk about people that they're investigating. That's how they talk about people in their investigations. And he spoke with multiple people, and it wasn't just like one group of people that he talked to about her, which would be bad enough, but like he talked about her to multiple groups of text messages that were shown of like, here's a chat between him and his sister, here's a chat between him and some old college buddies and whatever. So he was going around and saying these things to anybody that would listen to him pretty much about the case. And it's just crazy because he obviously planted taillight. But anyways, let's go back to our document here. All right. So back to Turtle Boy's article. Birchmore also had relations with at least 3 other officers, including Farwell's brother Billy, so that's William, their boss Robert Devine, a personal friend of Michael Morrissey. Robert Devine, chief deputy, or deputy, how do you say it? Deputy chief. And he's best friends, or personal good friends with Michael Morrissey. And the Abington police officer Joshua Heel, who also was having relations with Sandra, which led to emotional issues, mental health issues. I don't know who that is. It must be him again. No, that's not the same guy. I don't know. Turtle Boy. That's Billy Farwell. So that's Matt. Maybe that's Matt Farwell. I don't think so. I don't know who that is. That's Billy. That's Heel. Josh Heel. She seemed happy to be having a baby and had never expressed thoughts of self deletion. Here's some more court documents. A source stated that Birchmore had recently reached out to her to let her know that she was pregnant, said that this was unusual because they were not all that close and typically did not communicate about personal details prior to that. Birchmore told this source that she had been sleeping with a married man and he was the father of the baby. She also told the source that she had already bought a baby stroller. The source said that Birchmore had wanted a family of her own, but she believed the baby's father may not have wanted the pregnancy. According to the source, Birchmore wasn't trying to not get pregnant. When asked to elaborate, the source said that she believed Birchmore may have intentionally gotten pregnant, and then there's another whole sentence that's redacted. Bothers me to not know things. I'm like, why? Why is it redacted? What's so important about it that I can't know? And yeah, that's where my mind goes. Like, I don't care about a name, but when there's like a whole sentence, especially in that other sample or example above. All right, so the source stated that Birchmore had run into somebody's mother at the grocery store recently, possibly Stop and Shop. So, Stop and Shop, if you have been watching the trial at all of the Karen Reed case, the Canton police officers used a Stop and Shop bag to retrieve evidence at the scene or to place evidence in at the scene of the crime and brought it back to the Canton police station. No labels, nothing. Open cups of Solo cups, red Solo cups that had snow mixed with some kind of somebody's BLOOD in it, and that was their evidence. So Stop and Shop. It's also in this. All right, so the Stop and Shop bag, at which time Birchmore told so and so's mother that she was expecting. The source pointed out that aside from seeing one another at volleyball, Birchmore and her mother did not ever communicate with one another. So she was just like beaming, going around telling everybody she was pregnant, which I bet made Matthew Farwell mad, especially if she was saying, "You're going to give me this much money after the baby's born." He probably didn't want that getting around. So several of the same cops involved in covering up John O'Keefe's homicide were also involved in the Birchmore case, including Canton Police Lieutenant Michael Link. Hold on, my dogs are making tons of noise. Okay, now that they sat down. Several of the same cops involved in covering up John O'Keefe's homicide were also involved in the Birchmore case, including Canton Police Lieutenant Michael Lank, Detective Kevin Albert, State Police Detective Lieutenant John Fanning, and Trooper Nicholas Guarino. Remember his name? He did the data extraction in Karen Reed's case and in this case. And he seems to not be very good at data extraction, apparently. So this is part of Michael Link's report here. All right, so while waiting for the CPAC unit to arrive, I went to the rental office and met with the property manager, Aaron Porter, and maintenance supervisor, Carlos Verissimo. Verissimo was able to access the video camera system, which only captured the interior entrance to building number 3, which was the residence of the deceased. So I think this is the video that we watched then. The video is motion activated and captures people entering, exiting, or any other motion in the front lobby. While observing this footage, I observed Birchmore's activity in the following order. February 2nd, 2021, Sunday. Leaves building at 9:51 a.m. on the telephone. Sunday. Returns to building at 10:08 a.m. carrying a large box containing a baby car seat. Leaves at 10:11 a.m. Returns to building at 1:15 p.m. with 2 pizza boxes and talking on the telephone. Leaves at 4:39 p.m., returns to building at 4:41, texting on phone. I was later informed by Verissimo that Birchmore is captured again on camera leaving the building on Monday, and she returns at 5:46 p.m. holding a snow brush. This was the last time that Birchmore was seen on the video. While reviewing the video, Porter was able to obtain Birchmore's file and locate her emergency contact, Darlene Smith, who is the aunt of the deceased. So Darlene Smith is the one who was suing the individual officers and the town of Stoughton for their misconduct. I wonder now if they can renew that motion or do something additional now that they have Dr. Bodden, who claims that it is a homicide and not a self-deletion. I hope that they have some other means to keep going in this fight for Sandra Birchmore's justice. All right, so sources told me months ago, this is Turtleboy writing. Sources told me months ago that the federal investigation into the Birchmore case preceded the investigation into the Karen Reed case, but this was never confirmed. However, so he's never confirmed this, but it would make sense that they would be looking into the Sandra Birchmore case, and as they were looking at that case or something else, another case, that they kind of stumbled upon the Karen Reed case because they knew right away. I think the feds knew pretty early on that there was some kind of something going on. All right, so however, we do not know that Matthew Farwell was treated similarly to Brian Albert in that he was a police officer who was never considered a suspect. Another parallel, we do know that Matthew Farwell was never considered a suspect because of his status on the police force. Another parallel were the conclusions of Guarino and Fanning, who claimed that they couldn't find deleted text messages in Farwell's phone, much like they missed Jennifer McCabe's incriminating deleting phone calls and Google searches. This is a report from Sergeant Fanning to Detective Lieutenant Mataliano. All right, that's a cool last name. And this is regarding Matthew Farwell's phone. On February 9th, 2021, at approximately 12 p.m., I met with Matthew Farwell at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in Canton. I asked for Matthew's consent to retrieve the data off his phone relative to the investigation into the homicide of Sandra Birchmore. Matthew read and signed the consent form. I took his phone into possession and had Trooper Nick Garino extract the data. I then gave the phone back to Matthew. I have attached the signed consent form. So here's the another report to the same guy from Fanning again, and this is regarding Matthew Farwell's personal and work cell phone analysis. On February 9th, 2021, Matthew Farwell consented to a data extraction of his personal iPhone 11, which was then extracted by Trooper Nick Garino. On April 26, 2021, I received Matthew's work cell phone from Stoughton Police Department. Through Matthew's attorney, consent was given for a data extraction, which was performed by Trooper Nicholas Garino. I analyzed both of these phones and did not find any communication with Sandra Birchmore. Matt had said in a previous interview that he deleted all communications with Sandra. So they're saying they can't retrieve it because he deleted it. So there's no communications to be found on his phones. Do we believe this? Absolutely not. Contrary to the lies by the Commonwealth, Cellbrite software used by MSP to extract data from phones had the ability to find deleted text messages in Google searches. They just don't like to use the technology when it incriminates people who end cops' lives or people named Jennifer McCabe. The whole thing smelt shady from the beginning. Last month, Attorney General Andrea Campbell's office announced that they had taken over the investigation from Michael Morrissey's office, which speaks volumes in and of itself. The fact that the Norfolk County District Attorney's office cannot be trusted to properly run an investigation into a suspicious death like that of Sandra Birchmore tells you that the word is getting out that Morrissey's office is corrupt. Now the FBI has announced that they are officially involved too. Federal investigators are now looking into the case of a young pregnant woman who participated in a Stoughton Police youth program and took her life in 2021, widening the investigation into what happened. The FBI recently interviewed people close to Sandra Birchmore, 23, who self-deleted. 3 people told the Globe. Sandra Birchmore didn't take her own life, just like Karen Reed didn't take John O'Keefe's life or tell Jennifer McCabe to Google how long does it take to end a life in the cold. Birchmore participated in a Stoughton Police youth program from the time that she was 13 until she graduated from high school in 2015. The state medical examiner ruled she ended her own life while pregnant with her first child, according to the certificate. The document doesn't indicate who fathered the unborn baby. Oh, look, a government medical examiner came to the conclusion that police wanted her to come to again. That they wanted her to come to a conclusion, a specific conclusion. The wording of that sentence really threw me off. Sorry. All right. So meanwhile, new details have come to light in recently unsealed court records about efforts by Massachusetts law enforcement officers to unearth evidence to back a criminal prosecution in the case. State police reviewed more than 30,000 electronic messages that Birchmore exchanged over 14 months with Matthew G. Farwell, 38. 30,000 electronic messages that the state police seemed to recover, while Nicholas Guarino, also the guy who did the data extraction in the Karen Reed case for multiple phones, we're supposed to trust that? I don't think so. All right. So, yeah, he lost all credibility to me. The state police reviewed more than 30,000 electronic messages that Birchmore exchanged over 14 months with Matthew G. Farwell, 38, a former Stoughton police detective, to investigate whether they could find evidence to prosecute statutory R or larceny charges, the records show. Regarding the federal investigation, in separate interviews, the three people told the Globe that they spoke with the FBI after agents approached them about Birchmore. The three spoke to the Globe on the condition of anonymity. One said that they were concerned about possible retaliation. There's a lot of retaliation going on by law enforcement in Massachusetts. And the two others said that they were advised against publicly disclosing their contact with the FBI. Kristen Satera, a spokesperson for the FBI's Boston office, declined to comment, saying federal policy prohibits the agency from confirming or denying investigations. This is the same thing that happened in the Reed case. The FBI began approaching people like Lucky Loughran to build their case against the state police. Now it appears as if they've been doing that with the Birchmore case as well. So, a lot of correlations, a lot of similar folks, and a lot of similar corruption going on in both cases. The questions FBI agents asked were interesting. One person who spoke to the FBI said agents posed questions about what Birchmore had disclosed about her contact with Matthew Farwell and the timing of those interactions. A second person said that they told the FBI about Birchmore's account of an earlier pregnancy, which occurred years before her homicide and ended in a miscarriage. Both people said the agents didn't disclose specifics about what they were seeking to learn or the scope of targets of any investigation. The FBI knows Matthew Farwell took Sandra Birchmore's life. What they want to know is who in the state police knew that and looked the other way. Exactly. The FBI wouldn't be just investigating the loss of one person's life. I mean, not that that's not a significant thing, but it's not something that the FBI would get involved in. The FBI, when it comes to stepping in with these other agencies, with local state agencies, they're not going to do that unless they suspect or have some kind of evidence that there's a cover up or corruption happening. So that would be the only reason why they would actually investigate. The FBI knows Matthew Farwell took her life. What they want to know is who looked the other way. If state police detectives are willing to let a Boston police officer's life enders walk free, you best believe they're more than willing to do the same for the people who took the life of Sandra Birchmore. As usual, Morrissey's office was not informed of the investigation. Norfolk District Attorney Michael W. Morrissey's office released a statement, quote, "If there is a federal avenue for accountability in the matter, we hope it is vigorously pursued," Morrissey said Wednesday of when this was written. Last fall, Morrissey's investigation into Birchmore's case was taken over by the Office of State Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. A Campbell spokesperson declined to comment because they are likely the targets of the investigation, according to Turtleboy. Fanning also wrote that although they weren't really investigating Farwell for taking someone's life or for statutory R, he had relations with her when she was 15. They were looking into larceny charges for having. Wait, what? Larceny charges for having relations with Birchmore while on the clock. But they don't care about the fact that they took her life or that they were having relationships with her when she was a minor. Only that it was while they were on the clock. or while he was on the clock. That's sick. Meanwhile, newly unsealed court records filed last December by Morrissey's office and state police show investigators found that Birchmore and Matthew Farwell exchanged 32,709 electronic messages from December 2019 until her life ended. Court records had been impounded by a judge. That order recently expired. In the text messages, Birchmore and Matthew Farwell arranged to meet at different locations, including at a Costco store, a hotel, at her apartment in Canton, and at her family's home in Stoughton, wrote State Police Lieutenant John Fanning. Police considered potential larceny charges for Matthew Farwell. That is disgusting. I mean, at least they were told to step down or to resign. Investigators were able to identify where and how long Matthew Farwell spent engaging in relations when he otherwise claimed he was on duty and purportedly working, wrote Fanning. He said 2 other Stoughton police officers were having relations with Birchmore, but investigators didn't find probable cause to believe they met with her while they were on duty. Fanning didn't identify the officers. Imagine the hypocrisy of the Massachusetts State Police charging a cop for stealing money from the taxpayers. The people who invented the overtime grift and looked the other way for years while corrupt troopers lined their pockets with taxpayer money for work they didn't do are pretending to care about some predator groomer cop that impregnated Sandra Birchmore on the clock. This is a huge development and a great sign. The FBI is not wasting their time and resources investigating the homicide of Sandra Birchmore, just as they're not wasting time and resources investigating the investigation of John O'Keefe's homicide. Justice will come, and eventually someone will go to jail for ending John O'Keefe's life. It just won't be Karen Reed. And that is all I have for you today. That I thought that would give you guys a really good overview into the Sandra Birchmore case and also how the two are related. So I hope that made sense. I hope you guys followed and, I hope that information was helpful. And if not, even if it was just a refresher for some of you, I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know that you did by liking this video and hitting the subscribe button. Make sure you are subscribed and the notification bell's on so you don't miss one of my episodes on corruption, cover-ups, all these crazy things that these governments are doing to us, having so much power and control. We're going to get to the bottom of it here. So make sure you are subscribed, and I thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.